Konnichiwa. Nihon Kriketo Podcast to yokoso. Boku no namae wa Alan desu. I think that even those who have never heard a word of Japanese before can understand that. But just in case, hello and welcome to the Japan Cricket Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Kerr, and on this show, I will speak to the people who have played a role in the shaping of cricket in Japan, both on and off the field. Welcome back, Japan Cricket Podcast listeners. First of all, I should apologise for my unsolicited absence last week. I took a trip home to England and was not able to get anyone lined up. That's not quite true. I had two people lined up and they both pulled out on me in the last minute. So thankfully, this week we are covered. And for that, we have a man to thank who is a larger-than-life member of the Tokyo Wombats, president, centurion, regular member of the South Kanto Super Kings, led the charge as the Anzac team returned to the Embassy Cup this year, scorer of his maiden JCL 100 earlier in the season, Mr. Richie Bracefield. Welcome onto the podcast.
Cheers, Alan. It's more greeting than I was expecting, really, but great great to be on the pod. Happy to fill in while you're short of guests, mate.
Well, mate, I haven't got anyone lined up to come after you either, so this is a call for help to anyone listening. Please be a guest.
Oh, all I heard there was top of the list.
Absolutely. First season's always tough. Anyway, mate, how are you? How's things? How's life treating you now that the season is finished?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Enjoyed the season despite the interruptions. I think every outing was kind of appreciated a bit more than usual, just because it was it was great to be out and to catch up with your mates, and any chance you'd score a few runs is that much more precious nowadays. So I made the most of it this year, and I just really enjoyed my cricket. Otherwise just kind of cracking on, really. Got a son now similar age to your daughter, as you know, and it's keeping me pretty busy with the whole teleworking and from home, and I guess life goes on.
Yeah, we should probably warn our listeners that there's every possibility there may be background noise of 9-10-month-old children for both of us. So apologies for that. So, mate, well, that's good to hear about this season. Glad you had a good one. We'll touch on that a bit more later on. But for now, why don't we go back to the beginning and just you can tell me a little bit about your background, starting off with where you were born, where you grew up, and perhaps a little bit of background info about your parents as well and how they met.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty fascinating story. Actually, the parents, not me, but I was born in here in Tokyo, actually, and spent first, I think, 3 or 4 years of my life here. Apparently, I was fluent in Japanese back then. I didn't speak much English. You wouldn't be able to tell now, but moved over to New Zealand when I was about 4. So did all my schooling and all my cricket, of course, in New Zealand. It came back here, I think, in 2015. And just I think the parents' side of things was a bit unique. They were both missionaries in a Christian church, and my mum was sort of post-war Japan, managed to get out of Japan and followed a passion was classical music. It was actually a soprano in training in Vienna. So she went to university out there, and
so that's where you get your karaoke voice from. Suddenly it all makes sense.
It's a far cry from what my mother would expect. It's loud, I guess, but that's about it. My dad was a pretty charismatic young leader, led the movement, same movements in New Zealand, and he got posted over in Africa, in like Nigeria and Ghana and places like that back in the 70s, I guess. Him and my mother basically linked up when she was over there, and it was a pretty interesting, quite a few interesting sort of stories there where they didn't speak a shared language. So one of their other missionary sisters who spoke German would translate my dad's stuff into German so they could relay that to mum, and then she would do it in German to him, and then vice versa. So it sort of came from that. They basically had a penny to their name and retreated eventually to have kids, and then late 30s to Japan to to my mum's family here. And eventually Dad just somehow landed a job at Japan Airlines with no degree or anything else, and just kind of got the tourism by accident. And it's a pretty fascinating story actually. So
That is cool. A couple of well-traveled people, especially at a time when, tourism wasn't that big a deal back then, certainly not as it was sort of for our generation. People traveled very differently. There was a lot of overland bus travel and that kind of thing. So then you've got a sister, is that right?
I do, yeah, younger sister based in Auckland, doing her own thing out there.
So do you have any memories of being in Japan, or was it a bit too young for you when you left here?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really vivid as you might expect. I remember just running around the rice paddies in Saitama with my cousins. That's where my family's from, and still based out there. Just climbing farm machinery, tractors and that kind of thing with grandparents.
Did your parents used to bring you back for visits as a kid, or did you literally not come back at all until 2015?
I think every 2 or 3 years, but I think the older we got, the fewer times we'd go.
Mm.
When we were younger, absolutely, and that was, I think Dad was still in the airline industry, so kind of came with the territory. But he eventually kind of became self-employed, and I guess those business trips sort of take a bit more of a toll on the bank. So but we're also sort of involved in just being a bit older and having our own commitments, sporting and otherwise, growing up. But no, not as much as we'd like to, especially in the sort of teenage years and stuff.
So then, growing up in New Zealand, I'm guessing you don't remember much about first moving over there, and you said you didn't speak much English when you first got there. Do you have any memories of that at all, or have you heard stories from your folks about what you were like settling in?
Yeah, look, apparently I was a really noisy brat. My cousin, who's maybe a year or so older than me, still goes on about how I used to bite his arms and stuff like that. Yeah, so apparently a notorious biter.
Always a great thing to be known as.
Yeah, it could be worse things, I guess. But no, I think, generally kind of wreaked havoc. I had a bit of an arm on me as well back then, so I could throw a decent acorn and broke a few windows, I imagine. So, it was plenty to forget, I guess. But no, it was a good childhood, sure.
Yeah, so growing up in New Zealand, I assume you played a multitude of sports as a kid, as is the way in that part of the world.
Yeah. So rugby obviously was a massive part of my upbringing. My dad was actually a pretty decent rugby player at his day. He played for Wellington back when it was still, of course, the amateur sort of stuff, and even got an invitation to play in the back then. It was called the Possibles versus Probables trial, which was to get to the All Blacks. So he was a pretty serious player, and uncle as well. So every time you sort of go and talk to my Uncle Tom, he's got some rugby stories about, how Dad outkicked Grant Fox or whatever, always a good yarn. But yeah, sport was just a massive part growing up, and arguably the most consistent part of our lives, because we moved around a lot with Dad's work. But yeah, you could always sort of count on rugby in the winter, and then eventually cricket in the summer. So growing up, that was the routine.
Yeah, it's funny. I spoke to a few other people. It's been a bit of a theme on this podcast, actually, that how sport helps you settle into a new area. I remember Vishantan talking about it, how he went to a new part of India, and he had to, there's always kids playing cricket in the street, so you can just kind of wander up and join in, and you soon find a friendship group, and that's one of sport's great facets, great keys, if you like, to of the friendship circle. So then, did you play to any kind of standard in New Zealand, or was it more social stuff that you were playing?
I did manage to get all throughout age group cricket, I was representing my region, I guess. The highest level I ended up getting was into the Hamilton men's training squad, which is just below getting into Northern Districts, which is representing like a franchise, basically.
Yeah, it's not.
So yeah, and look, at the time that I was playing, I was absolutely stoked to get into that squad, even though I was unlikely to play because there were guys that were better than me who weren't getting a game. The likes back then of guys like BJ Watling even having a hard time making it into the starting 11. But I think just probably one of the highlights of my cricketing career, I guess, would just be being in that environment with those kinds of players. Just really, I mean, puts you in an uncomfortable position to have to perform better to get the attention you need from the selectors and the coaches. And at times you just put more pressure on yourself to perform, and it can be really stressful at times. But looking back at it, you definitely lift your game, and I think that brought my my technique and patience at the crease, to another level. Just being involved.
Is it quite cutthroat, that environment, in terms of people, fighting for one or two spots, and one mistake can cost you a place or whatever? Does it iron into you a certain resilience or steeliness to cope with those pressures?
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, in my experience, I think it was pretty fair. Like only it was cutthroat. I think there were guys who were kind of incumbent, or you kind of knew that they were going places with their career. Guys like Kane Williamson, for example, we all kind of knew back when he was about 12 or 13 years old that he was going to be a top player. And he actually scored a 50 against us when he was, I think, like fourth form, which is like 14 years old. And I was like 17 or 18 in my last year as a senior. His team beat ours to make it into the regionals for the Gillette Cup in New Zealand, right? Which is like the secondary schools tournament. So when you had sort of guys like that pushing their way up, and you really kind of had to work on a role. So for me, that was really get my fielding to be top level, but also as an opening batsman. So you kind of had to specialize if you wanted to have an opportunity to gain selection and stuff. So that's what I tried to do, and did the best I could. I think in the end, I kind of ended up being a lot more sort of focused on my studies and everything else, and didn't really consider that a professional cricket career was ever going to be in the cards. Or, definitely could have given it a bit more of a crack, I reckon. But it's one of those things. I don't regret it.
No, it must have been a great experience of, like I said, being in that environment with guys who have gone on to be some of the best players have ever produced, and possibly even higher than that. Guys being remembered as the best of the game. So that's pretty cool. So then, did you think that playing a multitude of sports, rugby, and then I guess you probably played a few other sports as well, helped your cricket?
Yeah, I think so. I've always taken a liking to team sports. Rugby, cricket. Big fan of basketball. I've even dabbled in handball. In fact, that's part of the reason why my shoulder is so shot. It's I played wing for the Waikato team and like European style handball. That was a lot of fun too. And I think that social element, but it's also really rewarding when you as sort of a unit or as a team kind of gel and get results. I find that a lot more satisfying than just getting a personal milestone or something solo. Being on a golf course and beating your handicap by yourself, for example, that's not the kind of thing
Doesn't do it for you.
Doesn't do it for me, does.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So then, okay, you mentioned your studies, and obviously you're working over here and have been over here for 6 years. Was it work that brought you back to Japan, or was there a hankering to reconnect with that part of your heritage? A bit of both.
Yeah, look, I mean, objectively speaking, Japan's just a really interesting place to be. I think even if you're here for a while, there's still a lot you're just scratching the surface. There's a lot you won't explore. It's just too much to do. You'll never clock Japan.
Yeah.
But for me, I think just professionally, and that was how I looked at it, or from one angle. But but also personally. My mother passed away kind of young, and she was really the bridge that kept me and my Japanese family together, right? And I had the faintest knowledge of the language, um, but by far the most out of my family. So after she sort of passed, I just started my legal career, um, and I had designs to head over to the UK, as a lot of Kiwis do, and do the OE over there and earn the pound and come back and put a deposit on the house. And it was kind of the done thing at the time.
Yeah, I know that.
Notwithstanding, yeah. uh, but no, I think my mother's passing kind of had left a profound calling for me to take that role as the bridge between the families. So I shifted my goalposts after sort of my first or second year, and um, at work, and decided I'd start looking over here. And managed to find a role here that was, actually a very good one, and it gave me enough time to, see the family and see a bit of Japan too. So made the move. It was a big call, and I thought that was going to be the end of my cricket career. That was for sure. So.
Well, that leads to my next question. Literally, the very next question I have was, what were your expectations coming to Japan? Did you know anything about cricket? And if not, how did you stumble upon it?
Yeah, no idea. I thought Japan was just Yaku and that's it, just baseball. So, I left, my kit was abandoned in a dark corner in my sister's flat garage. Last time I ever saw it, by the way, I never saw that again.
The black hole of a
Yeah.
Spare room or garage. Yeah, I know all about that.
Yeah. Someone's definitely scored a decent bat. Yeah, good CA bat. Still haven't forgotten that. Get dark every time I think about it.
So then, how did you come across the Wombats when you got here?
I think it was a year after I arrived, and I just got that hankering to play sports again, and I just curiosity got the best of me, I suppose, because I didn't actually know anybody that played cricket in Tokyo. So no, I just Google searched it, cricket Tokyo, and I think two searches came up that actually had English options. And the Tokyo Wombats just happened to be the one on top. So I think the other one was the Chiba Sharks, and so
How different things could have been.
exactly. So no, I just pinged them an email and got a response back, and they sort of said like, oh yeah, look, we're playing this weekend. Jump in the van and you're ready to go. So yeah, it's kind of happened faster than I imagined it would.
So you caught the tail end of the van days. Jared told us all about those.
Yeah, he probably told you a bit too much.
So what were your first impressions of cricket in Japan and of that whole experience? Did you immediately think this is better, worse than you were expecting? Were you just pleasantly surprised to be having a chance to get out in the middle?
Yeah, look, I actually remember it being a pretty memorable day. Actually, I don't think you could ask for a better day out. And I didn't know what to expect, of course. So I jumped into a van with 10 other strangers at an absurd hour in the morning in Shibuya, and got to know the guys a little bit. And it turns out we were playing the Chiba Sharks in Fuji. So you can probably guess. I think it's one of the longest standing club rivalries in Japan.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I didn't know at the time, but we actually had some real like stalwarts of Japan cricket playing in the team that day. You kind of mentioned, like sort of old guard. We had Gavin Beath was in town for that one. Rich Laidler, the former coach of Japan, and he's been around for a long time. Jared Shearer, of course. Alex Patmore, who was still a relatively new captain back then for the Wombats. Alex Coolop as well was one of the founding members of the Wombats. So, a lot of guys who at the time I had no appreciation for just how much they'd been involved in Japan cricket. And yeah, look, we won the toss. We batted first. It's a perfect day out in Fuji. You could see Fuji in the back, Mount Fuji in the background.
You're not going to go to start to your Japan cricket career than that, are you?
No. And, they were brave enough to put a debutante at 3. So, and I scored, I think, 30 odd at a half decent clip. So not too much of an embarrassment on debut, but, not too much to threaten the old guard as well. So,
Just bending in gently.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, look, I think we got 200 odd and rolled the Sharks for, I think, about 90. So that, just met earlier beers and fun on the side, getting to know these guys, and everyone was in great spirits after a win against the rivals, and, a pretty loose fan ride home, followed by kicking on in Shibuya. So you couldn't really out through. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, cool.
Rest of history.
I think that's kind of the sort of story that you want people to tell about their first experience, when it's, going in, I guess, with zero expectations. Then you come out, wake up the next morning, you're like, oh, what a ripper of a day that was. I guess since that was 2016, right?
Yeah.
So that's still quite a lot has happened in the 5 years since then. The new ground at Sano's opened. So is that something when you play up there? I mean, the Fuji ground's stunning, but it is still pretty basic in terms of facilities. When you come up and play, you've been up here a couple of times recently and played at the Sano International Cricket Ground. Is that something that you marvel a little bit that such a place exists in Japan when you think back to what you might have imagined in your first year here?
Yeah. Look, I mean, you couldn't find more stark contrast, really, could you? Because mown outfields and a perfectly circular boundary, and not every 6 loses a ball. It's
on ground
team
one.
rooms, the most on ground one. Yeah. No, look, I think the grounds at Sano are magic. There's something to look forward to. Playing on grass as well is always a bit of a treat. I think in New Zealand as well, at club level, it's always considered a bit of a treat to be playing on a grass wicket. And so I mean, it just sort of adds to it a bit more, and hopefully that means family and friends might want to come see the odd match. Now there's air conditioned tea rooms and a bit more than a long drop.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a big part of what Japan cricket is trying to do, is really encourage people to come and watch games, and for the SICG to be a family friendly environment. So, for yourself as a new dad, and I'm in the same boat with that. You want to be able to bring your wife, your kids up to the ground and get their first introduction to the game as well. It's the way that we grew up with it, right? You kind of see your parents playing or whatever, and you can kind of learn cricket through osmosis, and that's something that we really want, not just for guys like us who've settled over here, but for native Japanese to feel that sort of cricket vibe that you get at a classic clubhouse. So just going back to the Wombats, you were president for a year, 2 years?
Yeah, no, just the solitary year.
So what was it like running a cricket club in Japan? How did you find that? What were your challenges, and what were the highs of doing that?
Yeah, look, it's definitely a challenge, and it's all voluntary, of course. So you've got to find the time somewhere, and another part of your life is going to pay the toll, right? I think the biggest challenge for us is that as a club we're still kind of going through a bit of a rebuild. A lot of our core guys and founding members had just left the club, and the outgoing president as well was kind of hasn't returned to the club. So just lost a lot of experience, a lot of players, all at the same time. In contrast to that, a lot of the other clubs were growing at a very prolific rate. I think the Wombats are a bit unique in that we actually only have one standing 11, and we're a top division, but that's it. There's I don't think we can field a second 11 at this point in time.
Yeah, certainly in Division 3, that's the case. There's a couple of teams in Division 3, Adore and KO both just have the 111, but they're playing in Division 3, so it's slightly it's not as demanding, that it's more of a social thing, and you can get along with kind of first timers. Whereas, you got to know what you're doing in Division 1 these days. You can't just rock up never having played cricket before.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of expectation to perform at a decent level, because just by virtue of being in Division 1. But at the same time, our club does have its own culture, and we try to celebrate that we're a bit different and relatively quite diverse. It's been a bit lonely being one of the few Kiwis in the team of late. There's not been many New Zealanders coming into the country who have a bit of background in cricket, relative to maybe 10 years ago, where there were plenty floating around for English teaching jobs and what have you. So that was a real challenge. But I tell you what, I really don't envy the captain's role, which was being the selector. Trying to select 11 guys when there's only one team. That is really difficult, and it was hard at times to manage expectations and to keep guys interested and continue to put their hands up and be available when there's other teams that had 3, maybe 4 11s, and kind of they could promise a game every weekend, right? So
it's got to be tough, because you want to aim for, to have 2 11s, you basically need at least 25 players. So let's say you've got 20 players, but you've selected only 11 can play every week. That's almost an entire team that's left on the sidelines. And I imagine it's always the same, and that you get 18 players one week and 7 next.
And that continues to be a challenge that plagues us, unfortunately. So we might put 7 or 8 regular guys on the field, but there'll usually be 2 or 3 guys who probably haven't had a game in a couple of years, or kind of just there to have a day out and don't really mind how the cricket goes, and that's fine, because we're still very keen on the social side of things, to just have a good time, enjoy playing with friends. But yeah, just that performance side and being competitive myself, I still want to play good cricket. It can make it a bit difficult at times to, just to balance those two.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest challenge. Yeah.
And I mean, you mentioned Fuji, obviously your debut down there, but that's the Wombats' home ground. And you guys take pretty good care of that, right?
Oh, there's some more than others. I think Jared he does a lot for what he gets to do with it. So kudos to him, and a few other guys, like I think Mark McTamney's down there. He's on the mower usually at least 1 or 2 days before a match, and it makes a huge difference, because if you can't get value for good shots, which can be the case during the more moist seasons of the months of the season, then it really doesn't make for very good cricket. So yeah, no. Well, my hope is that more will be done to preserve Fuji. It's a magic ground.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
it is iconic, and it is the place that everyone asks us about when we get these contacts. People want to come and play. It's can we play at the Fuji ground? So you can. Should just advise you, it's not that easy to get to, but I mean, it's I've only been down there a couple of times when the mountain's been out, but you can't beat it, really. All right, moving on from that, this year, as mentioned at the top of the show, got your first 100. How was that?
Yeah. No, look, it was really, really pleasing to finally get the 3 figures. It was the last match of the season, so it was a nice way to close out the year. I think as much as I enjoy hitting the 3 figures, it was just as pleasing to sort of just to sort of bat. I get to bat with someone like Alex Patmore, who's been a friend for a long time, and we've batted together a lot. We actually set a club record with that partnership, which was really pleasing, and I'm sure he'll be happy to get his name at the top of the list as well. It's I'm thrilled about too. But no, just to sort of do that with the team, and that was what made it even more satisfying, was just to bat with a friend and win a game of cricket in cracker conditions on the Sada number 1 pitch.
Yeah, it's run chase as well, right? Chasing down 220 or something.
Yeah.
So to win the game like a couple down. So yeah, nice way to round off the season. Of course, yourself and Patmore, you may not be aware, are currently 1 and 2 in the run scoring tables for the Japan Cricket League this year. So
sure, yeah, no, chuffed about that.
looking pretty nice.
Yeah, wouldn't put money on that.
Averaging 58 this year, Richie. It's a fact.
Yeah. Well, I got fired a couple of times in the 40s, so I'm happy to get over that 50 mark. That's really pleasing.
Well, Pat's still averaging 106, so you got a way to go.
Yes, that's why I can't brag about it. He's always got one up on me.
You said that was your last match of the season. It's not entirely true, though, is it? It was your last Japan Cricket League match of the season. How did you go in the next game?
Yeah, no, Embassy Cup, and putting the team together and everything else, and had my fellow Wombat from the British Embassy bowling at me in first ball. I get let one through the gate, and gosh, I heard about it from them all night.
Cricket brings it down with a buff, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It has a way of humbling you pretty quickly.
Well, I didn't bring you on to make you relive your golden duck. But just, the Embassy Cup itself, obviously the Anzacs haven't been part of that for the last 2 years. So great to have that team back. And, what did you make of that weekend? It's not a high performance cricket environment, but it's much more a community cricket environment to try and bring everyone together. And I think you guys, made the most of that.
Well, yeah, no, look, we certainly thought so, and I think the Indian team probably missed the memo, because they looked like they were playing the part.
They were out to win. Sure.
Deserved winners. Definitely look the tidiest for the photos.
I may have poked the bear with that one, in that I said to them that they were the only team in Group A that hadn't won it, and if they would continue their poor form, they might go down to Group B, and I think they took umbrage to that.
Oh yeah, look, you could say there's only down from here for this. So yeah, no, look, I mean, especially at the end of the year, where we haven't had any opportunities to hold any social gatherings or just hang out with any of the other teams, any other players. It was a bit of a highlight just to have drinks, even if I had guys from the British MC sort of patting me on the back and saying, "Well batted." It was still a great laugh, and a really nice way to finish the season. Just having a few beers and a few sticks of yakitori, and that the old feeling of being a bit hungover the next day and playing cricket again. So,
and actually getting some runs. So maybe there's a lesson in that for you.
Yeah. There's a not out too. So technically, I'm averaging 62 in the FC Cup.
Right. And you got to play alongside Kiwi legend, former All Black Robbie Deans in that competition as well. Must be quite nice.
Yeah. First time meeting Robbie, and really nice guy, and glad he enjoyed his day out. He actually had a day out with the bat and ball. Played very well. And
so, we mentioned a couple of times young family, and how challenging do you find it balancing work, now family as well, and cricket?
Yeah, look, at this season, my first one as a dad, and definitely had to sort of make sure I got my priorities in order. But look, the wife's been great. She's I guess she just feels a bit sympathetic that I'm stuck in the house all day, tapping away at my keyboard on the computer. So you sort of a day away is, quite therapeutic. And then it's, who would have thought that a game of cricket would be, therapeutic? But it kind of has been this year. So I've really not taken it for granted, which has been nice. On the other side, I'm not sure how a lot of the guys, guys like Sabaresh and Vinay are starting these new clubs and spending a lot of time developing young players, and they've also got families and family commitments and everything else, and on top of that they're running their clubs, and I can't believe that they're able to do all of that.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Because running a club even with just one team was a heck of a challenge, at least in my experience. So hats off to them.
Yeah, right. Well, I've got one last question before I move on to my generic questions that I ask everyone. I was just wondering, as a guy who's been around and has seen cricket in different parts of the world, if you could make one change to the grading structure in Japan as it is right now, what would that be?
Oh, I mean, yeah. Look, coming off a season that I really enjoyed. So, take my, my criticisms constructively, I guess. But look, I've always been a big fan of longer format games, and I guess I'm a bit of a dinosaur in that I feel that T20 is almost overrepresented and it's kind of leaked into the one day kind of game, and it's changed a lot. I think what formed a lot of my approach to cricket and batting in particular, and fielding, has actually been playing longer formats of cricket, which are always a bigger challenge, I think, mentally. To sort of be able to assure yourself that there's a bit more time and to value your wicket more. I just feel that I guess my wish, and this is notwithstanding the huge logistical challenges that anything like a 2-day competition would present. Perhaps even a 40 over JPL would be pretty cool. I'd love to see that. I'd love to take part in that, or see if we can make that happen. Yeah, look, T20 is great. It's exciting. But it's just such a small margins mean such a big thing in the game that you kind of feel that the best team doesn't necessarily always win on the day.
Well, as an Englishman who's just seen his team get knocked out of the World Cup, I tend to agree with you. And you must be feeling the same in the final.
Exactly right. Yeah. So look, I do miss that, and I think that players developing here would benefit hugely from that opportunity to do that. Playing that kind of longer format does tend to help you develop as a more mature batsman, as a bowler as well. I think you're sort of aiming for very specific targets. You get something slightly wrong in T20 and you're gone. Some have to do everything perfect in T20 and you're still gone. Whereas just that consistency and patience that's the cricket I kind of grew up knowing, and I guess I kind of miss that. So it'd be a bit nostalgic, but I'd love to see that eventuate here in Japan. Hopefully I'm still around and kicking and able to run from long on to long on when that might happen.
Yeah, it's a real balance to strike, because we've got to find a mix of what's best for the players and what people want to play, but also what's best for the national team. And at this point in time, the Japan men's national team isn't going to be playing 50 over cricket for at least a couple of years. And T20 is very much the focus. That's what the ICC are pushing. That's what the drive is. But at the same time, the under-19 World Cup is still 50 overs. So, we need to give those kids a chance to play. And so, there is probably something in that.
It's a difficult balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Okay, well, look, I've got a handful of questions that we'll run through, keep you on your toes. So don't think too much about these, just whatever comes to your mind. First one I've got you kind of answered already, but best player you've played with or against, either in Japan or elsewhere?
I think in Japan, and it pains me to say this, it would be my skipper. Alex Patmore's, he's scoring runs consistently. 50. You're disappointed if he doesn't get 50. That's kind of the expectation. you know, he's also sort of the glue that's held a lot of the 11 together, especially during a rebuild. But he's also, I think, arguably still the best keeper in Japan, at least in my opinion. Yeah, back in New Zealand, it's a pretty small country relatively. So if you sort of in and around the traps with representative cricket, you're coming across some names that would eventually become big, and that was certainly my experience. So
I was going to say a 14-year-old Kane Williamson might still be on the list as the best player you've come up against.
Yeah, and at the time it was just kind of out of obscurity, right? Like we were sort of crowding the bats, and I was sledging him from first slip, and then just pulls out a pure cover drive off our best bowler, and just sings to the bat. You can hear the seam just kissing its way across the ground, and you're just like, geez, this guy can play. But no, look, I've been fortunate I played high school cricket against Tim Southey. He was playing for King's College, and managed to score a 50 against him. So I remember that. He did get me out, but it was definitely not out.
Never.
No, I was never out. It was a clip around the fine leg, and the keeper took it. So it's no way. But no, look, Trent Bolt and his older brother Jono playing for Tauranga when I was playing for Hamilton. Mitch Santner was a tiny kid. I think he's still waiting for a set of adult male shoulders, but back then he was still pretty handy spinner, and a very patient opening batsman. We're playing 2-day cricket against his Hamilton Boys High School team in the club comp. BJ Watling was in the same team, and we'd face these guys quite regularly. And Daryl Mitchell has been a recent sensation. Actually went to my school, and he was just a young kid, sort of coming up through the ranks as I was departing St. Paul's in Hamilton. Right? So look, lots of guys that ended up doing very well cricket careers, and Hamilton in particular was particularly strong at that time. Really.
What's the best thing you've ever learned from a coach?
Yeah, so best advice on it, I guess, the advice that stuck with me the most is from my first high school coach. His name was Hugh Barton, and he told me that confidence is a choice. So it's kind of stuck with me in terms of you can sort of think your way out of any slumps, and cricket's a real test like that. So
there's a lot of it's played in the head. Career highlight?
Probably just managing to get into that Hamilton men's squad. I mean, I've had a couple of innings where I managed to sort of crack on. Made a double ton in Auckland at Parnell Cricket Club once with I think we made about 400 on that day, which was in a 40 over match, which was pretty special. But but definitely just getting to that squad and being a part of that whole environment was something I'll remember for a long time.
Is there any specific loss that still really rankles?
Oh yeah, look, it's probably losing to Kane Williamson when he was just a kid, because he knocked us out, and I was the senior batsman in that team. He knocked us out of the regionals, and I was so pissed off about it that I broke up with my girlfriend at the time that night. So dark.
Yeah.
Awful day.
What's the funniest thing you've ever seen happen on the cricket field?
Oh, so you might remember a guy called Yusri Movadi. Plays for Alpha Quashers now, but he used to play for the Wombats. And one of the funniest things I've ever seen was he'd had a bit of a day out with the bat, and he's an opening bowler. He's a big unit as well.
A long ball.
Yeah. So he had a day out with the bat. I think he scored maybe 40 odd near the end there, and he's huffing and puffing. He then goes on to bowl his opening spell, and he's heaving in, even more. And so I think the skipper took pity on him and said, "Oh, you can jump in slips, mate." So he took my position in the slips, and I got relegated to mid off, and you could just so the bowler comes in to bowl, and just as the bowler hits his delivery stride, those the kind of involuntary moves you make when you're in slips. You kind of set yourself right as the bowler's coming up, and he just like his leg just violently cramps, and he does like a Mark Richardson style squeal of pain, just sheer agony, just collapses to the floor, and just got this huge bloke just holding his leg and just screaming in pain.
He's been shot.
Yeah, the whole field just broke down laughing while he's just rolling around the ground. So yeah, it's got to be up there.
You kind of hinted at this before, but your favourite format of cricket?
Yeah, to watch, I you just can't beat a test match. I think to play, I guess 50 overs just has that really nice balance that I'm used to. But yeah, certainly to watch, test matches hard to beat.
And your favourite place to play? I reckon you'd have played at some pretty impressive grounds back in NZ.
Yeah, I was fortunate to play a bit of cricket on Seddon Park in Hamilton, just the international ground there. It's this beautiful oval with grass embankments. My club actually was often asked to man the manual scoreboard. You know, the black and yellow things that you sort of
things.
Yeah. So we'd be sitting in the scaffolding behind us, and the best view of on the whole park because it's elevated, and it was at Cow Corner too, so you quite often get a white ball smashing through the ball. It's that was pretty special. We got to see the West Indies during their tour. I think when the Palmers came and side bottom thrashed us. I got to watch that from up high, which was pretty special. So yeah, really nice grounds. That
I probably would have. If I would have been watching those test matches, I probably would have seen you hanging off the scaffolding. One of those kids who you think, their life could be in serious danger, not passing the health and safety regs these days.
Yeah, I'm sure there was much to be desired to health and safety. But
last one on this: can you name one innings or bowling performance played by someone else that you wish you could have played yourself?
Oh, look, I think it's hard to go past Ben Stokes' innings in the Ashes a couple of years ago, where he saved that test match, and just had everything. You had you had a tail ender at the other end who was defying all the odds and surviving. You had controversy with an LBW that probably would have been out, but they'd used up their appeal, like the ball before, and just
missed run out.
Yeah, it's just
the works.
Phenomenal innings. Yeah. I could watch that whole thing ball by ball quite happily.
Yeah, needless to say, I went to bed when England was 7 down. Still bugged.
Yeah, understandable.
All right, last few questions. Japan-specific questions now. What's your favourite thing about Japan?
I think it has to be the food. The food and drinks. Look, everything's, even the cheap stuff is pretty amazing. And at least in Tokyo, like the best ramen you've ever had is 5 minutes in any direction. So yeah, hard to beat.
And where's one place that any visitor to Japan must go and visit?
I was hugely impressed with a place called Koyasan in Wakayama-ken. Have you ever been there?
No, I don't know it.
So it's Koyasan. It's a mountain, right? It's so you take the Shink over to Osaka, and then it's a local train out to Wakayama, and it's actually it's really high up in the mountains. It's actually the esoteric Buddhism home of esoteric Buddhism in Japan. Basically, where the Japanese version of Buddhism originated in Japan, and there's like hundreds of temples there, where these kind of young acolytes, these young monks, kind of in training, residing, and learning how to perfect their tradition, their art, right? But it also has some UNESCO heritage stuff, and like a graveyard, which I know sounds depressing, but it's, you kind of have to see it for yourself. You just walk through it. It's kind of hard not to feel like there's something a bit spiritual about that place. Yeah, highly recommend it. Yeah,
I will link to it in the show notes. Okay, you mentioned food. Favorite food?
Oh, mate, where do I start? Probably one of the biggest surprises I had was actually skemen. I'd never tried it before coming here. Is it, the dipping ramen.
Dip, yeah. Very labour intensive for me, that. food that I have.
Yeah, well, but when it's good, it's pretty hard to beat. There's a few places around that, next time you come to Tokyo, we'll have to grab a bowl.
Go and do one out. All right. And have you had any particularly suspicious food that really made you want to gag?
Oh yeah, tons. But most that comes to mind is tororo. Have you tried that? It's that white goop that you get if you go to like a steak place. So my understanding, it's some sort of yam or taro or something like that that's been pureed, and it's kind of like natto, like that kind of consistency where it kind of leaves strings when you pick it up. Just get some gag reflex going just thinking about it. It's all good stuff.
All right, final question. Your favorite Japanese word or phrase and its meaning?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised everyone's gone for gambatte or gamba, right? I always find, words are kind of like traffic. Yes, I appreciate versatility, so I went with my word would just be yabai.
See, perfect. So that was right? Shanton's word as well, right? So yeah,
yeah.
My most used word in Japan.
Yeah. Like, look, it has. You could use it in place of a swear word if you want to sort of express your surprise or whatever. But it's a really describing word as well. Only used in casual conversation, of course. But found on the circuit, it's a good one to know.
I find that it can be quite a good word to emphasize a point as well. I will often have a massive yabai, and my mates back home, doesn't need any explaining, right? People know what's going on when you put a massive yabai. Nice one, Richie. Thanks a lot for your time, mate. Help me out of a jam. I've got to get this edited by Saturday. This is absolutely the latest I've done an interview before it goes live. So this interview is fresh for those listening on Saturday morning. So thanks a lot for that, mate. It's been a pleasure to have you.
No worries.
And enjoy your off season. Put your feet up and enjoy being a dad.
Yeah, sure. Cheers. Likewise, young.
That concludes this episode of the Japan Cricket Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening. And if you really enjoyed listening, then I would be forever grateful if you could rate and review the show on whatever platform you get your podcasts. It would just help others to find the show and have the added bonus of making me feel a little bit better about myself. Until next time, arigatou gozaimashita.